if you guys as a PDGA can't have a specific answer for yourself.
Here's the problem with pace of play. We don't know what the problem is.
What's up, Disgenerates? It's the Disc Golf World. I'm Jefferson, and we got to discuss the new rule changes for the 2025 Disc Golf season. First, big thanks to all our Patreon members for allowing us to continue to bitch about pro disc golf all off season long. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure to do that so you don't miss out. Because you could have wasted your time reading all these so-called changes, but instead, you're here getting all your information you need in 15 minutes or less. And if we're being honest, that's 10 more minutes than anyone needs. Unfortunately, most of the conversation about the rules surrounded the fact that there wasn't much of any change, which left many confused since there were all sorts of problems that felt like they needed to be addressed. Pace of play, foot faults, or whatever else gave us an excuse for a title. Parker Welk did give a good solution on how to fix Gandenberg's excessive time problem, however. But before we discuss what should have been changed, let's talk about what actually did. Right away in the article, it admits that most of the changes were minor improvements and better phrasing, such as better explaining shotgun and staggered starts. I mean, I guess they officially added flex starts too. About time you added the most popular tournament format to the rulebook. Also good to finally have a bathroom requirement. Makes as much sense as allowing video evidence for course markings. We're in 2024. We should be allowed to take a damn Snapchat to clarify any confusion straight to the TD. This rule doesn't include foot faults or time violations, because the PDGA wants to do their absolute best to avoid those topics. Just kidding. But it does allow video evidence for player misconduct, which I do believe is a good idea. This then can get rid of the whole she said, he said situations on disciplinary rulings, which happened to be an issue we saw as of recent. Also, this was always a thing, just worded better. Okay, maybe the clerical changes were a good thing. Along the same lines, there are now adequate defined divisions on where individuals should play. From what I've seen online, this section is where the PDGA is catching the most flack not addressing trans athletes. Even Hall of Famers expressed their concern on the PDGA page. My guess is, they don't have nearly the amount of money to handle, getting sued. Again. From the numbers I heard directly from people involved in the lawsuit, would need lots more of those people commenting to put up some actual funds instead of just being mad online expecting the PDGA to be okay with folding. But we can all agree it's pretty fucking stupid to use the acronym FPO if it stands for Women's Pro Open. Makes no sense. Kinda like how we need clarification in the rulebook for non-PDGA members. I'm sorry, but I just can't imagine we really needed to grant TDs the ability to place people without a rating in divisions. How did that get addressed before literally any of the direct problems we saw on the Pro Tour? I say that, but I fully believe we're at the point the dgpt needs to create their own manual for standards of touring professionals. I'd rather see proactive steps in creating a better pro sport with established rules than waiting for the PDGA to make the calls. I'm also not saying it's the PDGA's fault. Why should they address less than 1% of their paying customers? Which is why I'm okay with them fixing problems like requiring TDs to hold undeserved divisions with fewer than 4 players. Before, women's senior and junior divisions weren't able to play because they couldn't get 4 people in, even with TDs encouraged to make exceptions. However, it was being reported that adoption of that suggestion was extremely low, and the Diversity Outreach Task Force agreed that allowing divisional opportunity is a good method to make a safe space in our sport. I'm all for making the people funding disc golf to feel comfortable. That's the only way we're going to keep getting their money after all. Another major change was better definition of what true amateur is. I don't play disc golf tournaments, so I don't understand the appeal to this, as anything with amateur in front of it seems more like a participation trophy than anything. What happens to be considered the last big change is the competition manual restructure for 2026. It states that just like in 2018 when the official rules were restructured to better reflect the order in which things occur in a round, they're going to be doing the same thing in 2026 to make items better organized and overall easier to find, breaking up large paragraphs and complex sentences. The new version of the rulebook is said to be at a 9th grade reading level, while the current version is about at an 11th, which is difficult because most disc golfers can't read. Or maybe that's just my home league. Those were all the so-called major changes, but trying to kick my boy Ajax off the course is just a dick move. Had to reach out to our furry friend for some comments. Don't worry though, if the first lawsuit won't get the PDGA, this one will get him. I'm not going to go through all the minor changes, mostly because I don't really want to. But here are a few that caught my eye. Apparently, now you can call yourself on a violation without a confirmed second. Sounds like the most irrelevant rule ever, but okay. Shout out to all you hot stampers out there. Not gonna lie, don't know what this means, but if you're happy, I'm happy. I'm confused how establishing a spider's call an automatic provisional improves pace of play, but enlighten me down below. Speaking of pace of play, how the hell do we not have any sort of clarification on that? This just means I gotta go through a whole nother year hearing all the people bitching about Ganon. Be mad if you want, but hear the kid out first.
I've asked even PDGA officials, and they all have a different answer. They're like, oh yeah, it's when you grab your disc out of your bag. It's when you step up to your lie. It's when you mark your disc. And like, if you guys as a PDGA can't have a specific answer for yourself, then like it shouldn't be such a big issue. And like, if you just push it even back to a minute, it's not going to change. Like, no one's going to purposely take a minute.
Plus, this is what a PDGA official had to say on Staggered Stance when discussing pace of play.
Is the issue not necessarily slow play, but it's poor tournament management? If a course, every hole's average takes 13 minutes to complete, I'm just making something up, and the tee times are staggered by 10 minutes, it's not going to work, right? I mean, if hole 1 takes 17 minutes, you're going to have a problem before you get to the end of hole 1.
I'm going to give them a benefit of the doubt and assume this isn't an opportunity to shift the blame, and hope this so-called data they have will be useful in creating a plan to fix the obvious problem.
So the data that we're looking at, that we're going to start looking at through StatMando, this is one of the reasons why we acquired them, is because we have all this data that we're not using to the best of our ability. So what we're going to start doing is we're actually taking data and looking at actually hole length, right? Through our PDGA digital scoring, right? We should be able to know exactly how long each hole takes, each course takes, the average hole length, the longest the course took, all of this stuff, right?
Let's hope StatMando can come up with ways to use that data in a positive way, because we're going to need a better solution than this.
Maybe the change that needs to happen is, nothing. And all we need to do is just adjust tee times. And we need to be a little smarter about how we're grouping people. It's premature and honestly irresponsible for us just to guess at what the change should be, right? Everyone agrees there's pace of problems issues on tour. I think a majority of people would agree that this is not a problem at 99% of PDGA events that we all participate in. But we also have to think about, how is this going to affect this 40-person C tier I just played this flex start today?
It is extremely important to remember the fact that these complaints are coming from the armchair warriors mostly just hating Nico and Ganon. But Robert's right to say that these pace of play problems don't occur in 99% of the PDGA's events. So maybe we should start pointing the finger at the organization solely responsible for the professional side of the sport. I'm not going to sit here and say I know the solution. However, we went nearly a full season with 2 complaints. People taking too long, which was fixed by clarifying that card mates don't need to help look for lost discs if it's OB. That's one way to fix pace of play. And the other issue being foot faults on step putts not being called, which was also apparently rumored to see a change this year, but that would not be the case. Personally, I never heard any talks about this, but after being sent what feels to be hundreds of pictures of foot faults throughout the season, feels like there should be something at least mentioned. And that's coming from a dude who step putts from 33 feet. Make sure to let us know how you feel about the PDGA rule changes and not so changes in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to not miss out on Casey White interview this Wednesday. Also, if there's any pros that's listening and wants to be featured on the Disc Golf World, hit us up. We'd love to tell your story this offseason. Oh yeah, and if you want the full unedited version of that Casey White interview, head over to the Patreon where you can get the full thing there.
I guess let's just go from the beginning then.
Yeah.
Disc golf, where did it enter your life? How did it?
I mean, really the only way to put it is it started with just tossing a frisbee. I always loved sports, but I didn't always have people to play with